Conversations across time, 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 across time, conversations across time, conversations across time, conversations across time, conversations across time, conversations.
Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Conversations Across Time. We've assembled a very interesting panel tonight, and our guests are seated to your far right. Wangari Maathai has graced us again with her presence. Thank you for being here, Professor Maathai.
Thank you for having me.
And seated next to Professor Maathai is Justice Antonin Scalia, conservative, considered the brains of the conservative movement in this country. Justice Antonin Scalia, welcome.
Whatever.
And to my right and your left is President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Thank you so much for being with us, President Roosevelt. I think you have a lot to contribute to the topic that we're going to be discussing, which our surprise guest will be introducing. And seated next to President Roosevelt is my dear friend and the show historian, Mark Hoffman.
Good to be here. That's
Mark,
myself.
Mark, you've been with us from the very beginning, and we so much rely on your presence, and thank you for being here as your own self tonight.
Yeah, right.
And our next guest, who needs no introduction, save I am going to allow her to introduce herself. Welcome.
Bonjour à tous. Je m'appelle Josephine Baker. I was born in 1906 in St. Louis, Missouri, and in 1925 I moved to Paris, where I fell in love. I danced in the nude in my bananas. I met so many extraordinary people, and I became the toast of Paris and Berlin. Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Just what we need, some dancing girl giving us advice on important issues.
Oh,
Well,
dancing girl. Well, I'll have you know that a count in Berlin ate out of my hand. Would you call that just a dancing girl, Monsieur Scalia?
Yes, those Europeans don't have the high moral standards that we Americans do, but that's another story.
Oh, royalty was eating at my feet.
Like I said, these Europeans have no morals, but we Americans have.
But Justice Scalia, we're not going to hold it against you that you have a problem with Ms. Josephine Baker. We're not going to hold it. We're not going to hold it against you at all, because guess what? What you can't have, you often hate. So at any rate,
Very good.
Why would I take it?
at any rate, tonight we are going to be talking about the role of women in Trump's America. And that is why this panel is assembled, because Wangari Maathai, as a feminist, what you went through in Kenya, in your native land, I would like you to just talk a little bit about that.
Well, I can go through. I was married, and I had children. I ended up getting a divorce because my husband felt like that I was too opinionated, too strong, too boisterous with my being and where I saw my country needed to go as far as the climate and what was going on with the change.
And so with that, you were fighting for preserving, as we discussed last week, you were fighting to preserve the climate and the environment in Africa, but you were met with so much male chauvinism.
Oh, yes.
And the guest sitting next to you is probably a premier example of disdain. And I don't know if it's cultural with you, Justice Scalia, that your background just indicates that women had to be looked down upon.
That's the way it's been through millennia. That's the way it is by nature. And for all these millennia, nobody complained. Like even slaves in the antebellum South didn't complain about their slavery. But it took some, excuse me.
Stop.
She's the host.
You know,
Let
they
her talk.
didn't complain because they didn't know any better.
Well, if they didn't know any better, they were probably satisfied with their lots.
No,
so
they
leave them
weren't
alone.
satisfied with their lots. That's all that they had. You know, it really bothers me, Ms. Baker, when I hear this Reconstructionist history that talks about the fact that the slaves were happy. Slaves were not happy.
Not at all.
They didn't have a choice. But at any rate, I didn't want to start this episode off like that. I am going to ask, if I can, Mark, to jump in and save me from attacking the guest.
Well, I was going to attack him. Justice Scalia, first of all, you have someone on the court, he didn't take your seat, he took the seat after you, who is an abuser of women.
Oh, yes.
Now, you would, and we all know it is Justice Kavanaugh. Now, you would,
Actually, a fine young Catholic boy.
I knew you would say that, and you would defend him, but what basically you're saying is that women don't know any better, that slaves didn't know any better, or they were happy in their lot. And that is historically the justification for the maltreatment of women by males like yourself. And in Trump's America, there's movements to stop it, but on the other side, because of the leadership and some people on the court, there is a wall to prevent it, to prevent equality, prevent the equal treatment of women.
And there's no question that there's a problem today because of the leadership in this country about how women should be treated. There's no problem in my mind how they should be treated. I think women should be just as equal as men. And I think that the movement now, the trend is that women will be as equal as men. I mean, even as long ago as 40 years ago or 50 years ago, very few women attended college or law school or became doctors. Today, the preponderance of students in law school are women. The preponderance of women, of people running for office, both local and national offices, are women.
Yes.
And this movement is not in its early stages, but it's in its growth stages. And I think it's going to lead to women finally being equal in all areas of life, in employment, in every area you can think of. They'll be just as equal as men, and I think that's what should be.
I agree with President Roosevelt, but that is the reason for Donald Trump and the reason why Trump still has support, because many men, too many men, want to go back to the way it was before these movements, and they're fearful of what the president just said, that women will be totally equal.
That's right.
And they want to go back to the way it was when men were dominant and they can get away with abusing women like Justice Kavanaugh did. They can get away with abusing women like President Trump said he did by grabbing
right.
their...
Oh, absolutely, he did.
By the way, let's just look at this. Who is it that are passing all the laws in the country today that violate every right that women have, including their right to health, to health care?
Absolutely.
Republican
there are
men.
Funds Planned Parenthood.
Republican men.
White gray-haired
believe
Republicans.
that
White gray-haired Republicans. All men.
Right.
all
Republican
men. Yes,
men.
At
all
all.
men.
Correct.
What justices of the Supreme Court are voting in all of the restrictions on abortion? All men. It's not women. Women are not able to handle their own affairs, which is incredible to me.
And
why can't they have the same health care that men have?
Right.
Why can't they make the same decisions that men can for their own self and for their own health? It's just beyond belief that that's the way it is in this country in this day and age.
Mark, what do you think would happen if men could get pregnant?
If men can, you could get an abortion at Jiffy Lube.
It's still the taking of a human life, but that's just me.
Well, you know, Justice Scalia, your way of thinking represents, unfortunately, the way many men feel. But that's changing. That's changing. And you know what I find interesting? That Josephine Baker was a war hero. A war hero. Nobody asked, you know, you're a woman and therefore
Nobody can.
you can't. She was a significant part of gleaning information for the benefit of the Allies. So if she could put her life in jeopardy, this is during the Second World War, she could put her life in jeopardy for that and then be told, well, but you're less than. I just think it's problematic.
But your best friend on the court and the person you had dinner with all the time was who? Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yes.
So you can understand on a
I
one-to-one.
didn't socialize with her.
Yes,
you
you did.
did.
But you
You
could
didn't call that socializing.
See,
What did you think
So
you were
you're
doing?
you're like the segregationist, like Trump did in one of his rallies. Said that's my black guy over there.
Right.
That you have one black
I have
friend,
a black friend.
but you can't expand it to see equality for all. So you would, and the point is, and I say this and because of what President Roosevelt said, the trend is moving toward equality, and the trend is moving for equality of race as well as gender. But the Trump movement is afraid of that. And I would say that Donald Trump is president of the United States right now for two basic reasons: anti-feminism and racism.
Yes.
So let me ask you: Are we thinking that because men that the type of men that Justice Scalia represents, that talks about that for millennia men have always been in charge, are we thinking that these men are so frightened?
Yes.
Yes.
Of course.
Absolutely. They're
scared.
trying
Of
to
what?
control every aspect
Yes.
of being a woman. They're trying to control our rights. They're trying to control the way we do things. They're even trying to control our human bodies.
Yes.
Who do they think they are? And I think it's because they're threatened. They're
You're
threatened
trying
of
to
our
keep
potential.
it from
But this
taking
is
your
one
human
thing.
life.
But
You're trying
Monsieur
to
Scalia,
keep
Monsieur
you-
Scalia, will you please listen?
Yes.
I don't have to listen to you, but
No.
Yes,
good.
you will.
Yes, you
But,
do, because
you-
you're on this
You will
panel.
try to control
Right.
every part of me, but you will never control my voice. And can I get a close up? Trump, as much as you try, you will never succeed, and you will never push us down. Thank you.
You know, this is a president, this topic that we're talking about, women in Trump's America, this is a president that, was it a week, 2 weeks before the election, when he made the statement that maybe he didn't know he was on a hot mic, but nevertheless it was blasted all over. All the media covered it. And he said that you could do anything to women that you wanted. And he talked
Anything.
about assaulting women in the most degrading and despicable way.
Grabbing them.
Exactly. And that happened, and people like me said, okay, well, that's it.
That's gotta be enough.
That's got to be,
has
that's
to be
the
enough.
nail that we
But
need.
wait a second. How about this? How about all the women who knew that and voted for him?
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
What? So,
Still, that's a
I
very,
mean,
yes.
it's not only men that have to be educated,
Yes.
but women have to be educated too.
Yes.
They have to stop thinking of themselves that they're there for the pleasure of men, even though I think that's a good idea. But I don't think it's a workable idea. But that's not the case. So
You
women
have
have
to
to be
understand-
just as educated as men have to be educated, and what can make women equal to men. And that's
You have to
really
understand-
important.
And you're right, and
You
you're
have to-
absolutely correct.
I mean,
You have
women
to
walking around
understand
with
the
signs
people
with
who are
"Grab me
voting
here."
for Mr.
Yes.
Trump.
It was disgusting, by the way.
Yes, yes.
Yes, you have to understand the people who are voting for Mr. Trump, even though he says those things, because they agree with him. And there's people who believe that, and they vote, and you can't stop them from voting.
But wait a minute, Judge Scalia.
Yes.
The only reason why women would vote for an individual so vulgar is because they do not know better. These are things that they have not learned. They have not learned the empowerment of what it takes to be a woman on her own, self-sufficient, being able to rely on herself. I wonder how many men told their wives, girlfriends, when you go into that voting booth, you vote for Trump because I take care of you.
That's a good point.
It is a good point. But the thing is, for a long time in this country, we educated women to accept that role. You know, I'm a retired teacher, and I saw a curriculum in 1940 and 1950 for South Philadelphia High School for Girls, where they literally, in home economics, said to the young ladies who were taking the course, in this lesson, we're going to teach you how to treat your husband. When he comes home, make sure the children are quiet. Do anything he wants. Do not annoy him. Do not aggravate him. So we were teaching young women to be subservient to men, and that's through most of this, the history of this country.
But not just this
When women
country.
wanted to become teachers, they didn't go to college. They went to normal schools. They didn't even call them colleges. They were only allowed to teach certain subjects. So it's a growth period, and people are afraid, and that's why the topic, Women in Trump America, this is a turning point, because people want to turn back the clock to when women could be raped by their husband. It was legal.
Correct.
They want to turn back the clock, and it's the old cliche, keep them barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen.
Right.
And I don't think it's going to go back. I think the president's correct. The trend of history is toward equality, but the trend right now supporting Trump and his followers is, let's make it go back.
But
Well,
you
that's
know
what he meant by
something
make
else.
America great again.
Yes,
Oh.
yes.
I mean,
That's
that was
exactly
code-
that's
that was code for all of those
exactly
things.
right,
Absolutely.
President Roosevelt. That's
Yes.
exactly right.
Yes, but
It's
see,
really
even
a
in
joke.
my country, we were raised that way. My
You were
father,
raised to be subservient.
yes,
Yes.
in my country, but I was a strong-willed young woman, a young girl, and I wanted to climb trees. And the difference between how I was raised and how the other young women in my village were raised is that my father didn't see anything wrong with me being able to explore myself. And I think that's, and it boils back down to is teaching. It's a learned behavior.
Yes.
Education is the fulcrum.
Yeah, if you had another parent, he might, when you were getting divorced, he would have told you, stop doing your activism
Right.
and obey your husband.
Right. That is correct.
So I have a couple of questions that I want to ask. Do you think that the attack on abortion rights in this country has anything to do with the fear of the Stephen Millers and people of his ilk that the United States is becoming, is it by 2050, Mark, that it will no longer be a minority? It will no,
Maybe a white,
it will no longer be a
whites will
white
be a
majority?
minority,
Correct.
yes.
And so that they are attacking abortion rights because they want to make certain
That
that
they are preserved.
That they are preserved. I mean, I just,
Isn't
is there a
that-
connection?
Doesn't that go against what it really means? I mean, if there was no, let's assume there's no abortion, nobody can get an abortion,
Right.
legal or otherwise. Well, I think since there are a lot of brown people and tan people and all, there'd be a lot of little kids running around all over of all colors. So it wouldn't be 2050, it'd be 2035.
Yeah, but-
when the white being a minority.
But there's
it's
there's-
anti-ethical.
That's,
of what
no,
they're
no,
really
that's
trying
not. But it's not the only thing that's going on. You're going to deport
Oh, yes.
Yes.
the brown
Yes.
people,
Yes.
and then
Well,
have the white people
That's a
have
whole
more and
nother
more
thing.
kids. Don't
Right.
forget, and we had Herman Goring on a couple shows,
Yes.
and that's
we
one of
talked
the
about
things the Nazis insisted on. That the other people couldn't have kids, and they bred the pure
pure.
Right.
Aryans.
Yes.
So,
And
you
how
know.
we
That's the next step.
you-
That's
you-
really the
So,
Yes,
so
it really is.
you would be correct, President Roosevelt, if it were in a vacuum, just, no abortion and the brown and dark-skinned people were having children as well, but they're going to, the whole
they're gonna
point
get
is
rid of them.
get them
Right.
out of the
Try
country.
to get them out of the country.
And that was the Nazis' theory, breed the Aryans.
Right.
Yes, but you have to understand there are some people who vote according to the moral teachings. Like in the church, we're taught that that abortion is a great sin, that life begins in conception, and race doesn't factor into the situation.
Well, let me ask you something, Justice
Right.
Scalia, right? Because the evangelicals and you're a very religious Catholic.
Yes.
Use the idea that conception, that the only reason you use any type of sexual thing is for conception, right?
That is the truth.
So,
And the
so
birth control is
masturbation would
yes.
be a sin too, right?
Yes, of course it is.
Right? And you would jail people for abortion and things, would you not?
Absolutely. That
Well, then you would have to put all your
you
Republican
go.
senators in jail for masturbation.
Masturbation. That would be.
you have to go there, don't you, Mr. Hoffman?
I think I like that.
You do have to go there, don't you, Mr. Hoffman?
Well, if the palm fits, wear it.
Wow.
So I mean, because it does seem to me that the question that and the notion that people are so anti-abortion does have to do with the preservation of the white race.
Yes.
And the reason for that is because they want to deport all brown people.
Right.
They want to get what is President Trump call them? He calls them breeders.
Right.
He refers to them as breeders.
Well, go
Wait,
back
wait,
to
wait,
where
just
you
one-
came
one thing.
from. Go back to where you came from.
Yeah,
He
yes,
said to the
exactly.
three.
Well, I think we're missing one of the major points about abortion. There are religious precepts that bar abortion. I mean, there's no question about it that there are religions that say that it's a sin to abort a child.
There's
or to
nowhere it
prevent
says that.
Or to prevent
You can,
conception.
it does, yeah,
Now,
that's different.
The issue is
That's
not whether or
different.
not that's right or wrong.
Right.
The issue is that people that that religious ilk have a right to believe what they want to believe.
Correct.
And I don't think that people should have, people who are not religiously motivated, or the people that are religiously motivated, don't have to put what they believe in everybody else's lives.
Right.
Yes.
They don't have
Yes.
that right. And that's what it's
Yes.
really about. What it is not a right of abortion or whatever, it's a right of choice.
Right.
It has nothing to do basically with abortion. If I don't believe in it, then I'm not going to do it for myself. But don't make
Stop
me not
someone
do
else.
it because that's not what I believe in. And that's what I think. This
That's
is
the purpose
America.
of that.
But it's
Freedom
also,
of choice is part of what the American
Right.
fabric is.
But
I
part-
believe that
part
when
of-
I was president, it should still be the same.
part of it is the male dominance, anti-feminist attitude, because if you make abortion illegal and some of the draconian laws that were passed in some Alabama,
Alabama. Oh, my goodness.
exactly, women are still going to have abortions. So
Right.
therefore, it becomes medically problematical when they have the abortion. They put themselves at risk. And no male would put himself at the same risk he's putting women
There you
in. So
go.
it's part of the male dominance, anti-feminist attitude that
But let's
Well,
not
maybe the women
forget.
shouldn't
Let's
have
not
sex
forget.
if they don't want to
Abortion is
have
legal.
babies.
Roe versus Wade,
Abortion is-
abortion is legal. So all of these other things that they're talking about making abortion illegal would go against what the Constitution of
Well,
Now, I
no,
wanna ask
whoa. The court can overturn Roe versus Wade,
They can.
and people talk about a precedent and that they won't, but that's why Kavanaugh's the number one reason Kavanaugh is
Yes.
on the court is to
Yes.
overturn Roe versus Wade.
Now-
The
Well, I
number
would
one
predict that
reason
Roe
Gorsuch.
versus Wade will not be overturned. It may be penetrated, but it won't be overturned.
Well,
I think that Justice Roberts is too much.
President
of a-
Roosevelt, that was really, I have to think about the way you worded that.
Well-
Penetrated. I really
Wait a
have
minute,
to think
can I-
about
Penetrated,
that.
is that the word?
Yes,
Yeah.
penetrated.
Wait a minute, may I ask this question? I want to, because we are so close to the end of our segment, and I do have one question. In light of the challenges that women face today, do you think a woman has an opportunity to become the next United States president?
Great question.
I think yes.
I believe yes, but I don't think that the time is right. I think the administration that is in office currently has done and slipped so many different law-changing venues in that it would be too much work for a woman to have
Okay,
to
so
come in.
that's a good, this is a lightning rod question. So your answer
I object
is,
to that reasoning, by the way.
I agree.
Because
too.
I don't think that that's the case. If you look at the elections in 2018, more women ran,
Yes.
more women won than ever before. There are more women in Congress now than ever.
what,
but
And I
the
think the
cleanup.
trend
But no, this
is
is-
right. I think the trend is there that would permit a woman to win.
No,
okay,
I'm-
now wait a minute, wait, this is, because this is a lightning rod, and I've got to get,
Oh, okay.
I got to get to everyone. So I want to ask Justice Scalia, what is your thought? You think a woman could become president?
Maybe
Our
in the
next
distant,
president.
maybe in the distant future.
But not
if
the
they
next
have-
president, 2020.
Well, maybe if in the distant future if they have sound policies. Otherwise, no way.
Okay, Elizabeth Warren has lots of policies. I'm just saying.
Yes, she does.
Okay.
Yes, another world-saving social worker like your wife, Mr. Roosevelt. We just couldn't leave well enough alone.
Please do not denigrate my wife.
There you go.
I will do so out of
Justice,
Please do not do
Justice
it.
Scalia, come on, lightning rod, lightning rod.
Impeach her.
Justice Baker. I'm sorry, Josephine Baker.
should have been
Justice Baker. I'm
Madame
so
Baker.
sorry. Yes.
She'd be a better justice than
You'd be a better
Scalia.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Well, I think women have the right and the ability to do whatever they put their mind to. We are equal, and I think it is time that
Okay.
we
There you
come into
go.
I
office.
think
All
that's
right.
a good closing point.
Mark.
because I think that's-
I agree with everyone, but I still know too many people, and I still talk to too many people from certain neighborhoods and certain areas of the country that would have a hard time voting for a woman. So it would have to be, right now, it would have to be a very, very special woman to win. Now, I think a woman would be a great president. I just got done doing some affair where the chairman of the committee was a woman. She ran it better than any man I ever worked for. So it's time for a woman. I'm not sure certain segments of society will vote for a woman yet.
Well, there you have it. This has been Conversations Across Time. This was our lightning rod, and I thank everyone for responding as quickly as they did. Any last words that anyone has, have at it. Justice Scalia, you're sitting here with your
I have
dour look
nothing
on
to
your
say.
face.
I have nothing to say. I said all I have to say. I'm not interested in anything you all have to say.
Well,
Period.
it's unfortunate that you said as much as you did say when you were on the bench, but that's okay. Professor Maathai.
My closing argument is I think that this was a very productive conversation, a very good idea for people to be able to take and have one-offs with.
Okay. Thank you.
I second that, by the way.
You second that?
I do.
Anything, President Roosevelt? Anything you want to say?
I think I've already said it. I think the time is right. I think the trend is in the right direction. Other countries certainly have had women at the helm. Israel from years ago had a
Golden.
woman leader. Germany has a woman leader. England had a woman. Why wouldn't the United States? And I think the time is right, and it may well be that next year that'll be the case.
Okay. Mark?
I agree with everyone, and it's time, but be wary of Trumpism.
Ms. Baker?
I agree with the Presidente. I think the time is now, and I think women need to take control.
That's been Conversations Across Time. Thank you so much, Professor Maathai, Justice
you.
Scalia, President Roosevelt, Mark Hoffman, and the delightful Ms. Josephine Baker. Good night. Tune in next week for another exciting conversation across time. Thank you.
Conversations across time, 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 across time, conversations across time, conversations across time.